Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is one of my favorite guests, Penney Peirce, author, clairvoyant, empath, author of 10 books, and probably her most well-known book is called Frequency, The Power of Personal Vibration. You can find out more about Penney Peirce at pennypeirce.com. Welcome, Penney Peirce.
It's good to be back.
Now, Penney, again, the concept that you talk about in frequency, I think, is so important. You know, when we relate frequency to healing, you know, one of the things that I'm always explaining to people is that all illness, all disease is literally slowed down vibration. And healing happens when you lift your vibration. And if you only get that one concept, that illness is slowed down vibration and you heal by lifting your vibration, that can help you and empower you to change your whole outlook on natural healing.
Yes. So,
yeah.
Well, you know, I had been working a lot with intuition and transformation, and it came to me kind of out of the blue that I really should start to write about energy, and that energy and consciousness are like flip sides of the same coin, and that the energy on the planet is accelerating so much that we suddenly became aware of ourselves as made of energy and consciousness, and that we all everything has frequencies and different levels of vibration. So the big shift there is that, you know, we used to just think of ourselves as solid bodies separated by empty space. But now, you know, everything has its own vibration, and the air has its vibration, and there is no empty space because there's consciousness everywhere. And we're in this unified field of energy and consciousness. And so then you start to realize that how do you manage your energy? How do you adjust your own frequency? Because that will cause you to have different states of awareness, right? And like you said, I think illness or you know, some kind of discomfort at some level physically and emotionally is because the frequency is too low. It's not, you know, it's not matching what's going on the planet, for instance. You know, and we're stuck in some kind of fear vibration, which is a very low vibration. You know, and as you raise it, you move more into that experience of, you know, love. I don't know what do we mean by love, but unity, kind of conscious communion of feeling how everything is really connected and working really well. And then you start to lighten up, you know.
Yeah. Now, you know, Penney Peirce, author of Frequency, another author now deceased who talked about the same concept in a little bit different way was Dr. David Hawkins, author of Power versus Force.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if our audience is not familiar with the work of Dr. David Hawkins, you can go to one of my websites, unlimitedenergynow.com, and then go to media. And then I've got a bunch of free giveaways. If you go there, you can download Dr. Hawkins' Levels of Consciousness. So I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes version of that. So a lot of our what's called emergency emotions are not in integrity, and they're below the level of 200. They literally pull us down like weights. So this would be shame, blame, fear, anger, pride, greed, these emergency emotions that weigh us down. And there, as you know, Penney, whenever we do natural healing, whenever I do natural healing, it's always important to me to find the emotion behind the disease, because if you don't clear the negative frequency that's causing the illness, it just morphs into something else. So then Dr. Hawkins talks about, then you reach the level of 200, which is integrity. The next major turning point is the frequency of 310, which is willingness. When we get to willingness, it's like, all right, I'm willing to face what is, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get better. And then 400 is reason, 500 is love, 540 is unconditional love, and 600 is the frequency of enlightenment. 1,000 is the highest frequency that a human being can hold, according to Dr. Hawkins. And then you get into angels and archangels, very high frequencies.
Yes. Well, that makes sense. I mean, I don't put numbers on it, but I'm sure if at some level everything has a number frequency as well, you know. But I feel like you know, the lower vibration is always fear related, and fear causes us to be overactive in the left brain. The left brain is where we analyze and define and have language, and we kind of need meaning, and we sort of lock down meaning there and define things, and then we get fixed ideas and belief systems, things that don't move, that they're, you know, they're basically a contraction of thought or consciousness. And whenever you have a contraction, and of course that could be an emotional contraction as well, like a, you know, and then never exhaling again, and just pulling inside and protecting yourself. But those things keep your vibration very suppressed, and what happens then is that contraction actually translates itself into physical illness, or like tumors or accidents or any kind of snags in your life. As soon as you can raise your vibration, things become more fluid. You become more open to allowing surprise and things to start to let go of the contracted state and become more liquid again, so that energy can flow. And when energy flows, the frequency goes up. Right? When it contracts, it goes down.
Right.
And it's a simple way to think about it in a way too, is that trying to control things is a contraction. Having faith and trust in things is fluid, you know, and that's just a simple way. But also I have a way I think of as working with what I've called your home frequency, which is, to me, that's like the vibration of the soul in the personality, the soul in the body. And the soul being that way of knowing that is totally in faith and connected to all things. Everything's fine. Everything's provided if you need it. You can have it. You cannot have it. Anything you need. It's very frictionless and, you know, joyful and easy. And, you know, we each have our way of kind of identifying with that state. Sometimes it's like playing with a puppy, you know, or you know, just enjoying yourself like a child full of themselves. So, but we all have our sense of that. And sometimes it's like a texture, you know, sometimes it feels like an Angora sweater or a soft butter, or, you know, something very sensuous. One client of mine said hers felt like she was a dancer, and she always felt like this figure 8 motion of movement and fluidity was the way she tuned into her inner home frequency, which, you know, that home frequency doesn't vary. It doesn't change due to outside circumstances. You know, it's always there. It's like the light in a baby's eyes.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I always explain to my clients, I say, you're already a VIP. You're already a vibrational interference pattern. So this frequency that Penny's talking about, that's just as unique as your thumbprint, right? It's just as unique as your fingerprint. So, and we know that, like Penny and I are both nice people, but we have different energy imprints, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, I would say in my work as a medical intuitive, I work with a place in Costa Rica, and they'll give me, you know, a little bit of report on a person. And often I don't even, probably 80% of the time, I don't even receive a photograph. And based on this information, the age, what do you eat? What do you want out of your healing? And I'll sit there for an hour, hour and a half and write a whole report, a medical intuitive report about a person. And the reason I'm able to do that is I literally tune in to that person's specific frequency. So Penney, can you talk about how our frequency can sort of be located, and intuitive people such as the two of us can tune into a specific frequency to read the frequency of a person, to understand what's going on?
Yeah. Well, there are two things. First of all, the home frequency to me is a very stable thing that is always there, and it's your internal way of feeling yourself. But a lot of us are very fixated on the outside world, and thinking that it's out there, and that it's so big and we have to either match it or protect ourselves from it or get it to agree with us or, modulate it somehow. So when we go around usually during the day and we're out in the public, for instance, I think we change our frequency. We modulate it constantly in order to match other people, situations, different physical spaces we go into that will affect us. And we'll find ourselves, if you go into an ugly place, for instance, you may get depressed because your energy matches the space. Because we are masters at energy matching, right? Because we do that, I think, to stay safe. It's a tribal thing, it's resonance. So when I'm answering your question here, I think that a lot of times when people are not feeling good or they're sick or out of alignment, they've matched a frequency that isn't their home frequency. So I think when we go to read someone or assess someone's state, you go in and you try to feel their core, their truest self, that's really that loving, open child self that's so genius and natural and fluid, and then hold that and know that is the truth. Then around that, there can be different kinds of fixations of different frequencies that you can start to feel it. And especially if you're empathic, I will actually contract around a person's, contraction. I'll feel it in myself and then go, oh, that's what they're doing. That's what's going on here and why. And then I try to fall down through that and go down another layer to see where did that come from, and sometimes it's good to reveal that to the person so that they can clear it. And sometimes you don't need to. Sometimes you just go to the home frequency and the core vibration, activate it, like hit it with the tuning fork, and let that one come through and take over. I think it's a case by case basis,
Now, I think you said something really important, which is that our home frequency, another way of putting it, if I could put it in one word, is actually bliss. And wouldn't you agree?
Yes. Well, I'm not exactly sure. Bliss is an interesting state. There are a number of words that I would use around that state, like ecstasy, enthusiasm, kind of a childlike joy, spring fever feeling, ways of trying to get myself to slide into the actual experience of bliss or awe. Because to me, some of these words are a bit general and we don't often experience them and connect the felt sense with the actual word. Do you know what I mean? So, but yes, I think that it's like a state of, it's ecstasy that's not like jacked up. Do you know?
Yes.
It's calm. But
calm, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so as Penney and I discussed this, one of the ways that if you're listening to our program and you're thinking about your own home frequency, if you're in a state of depression or anxiety or anger or frustration or shame or blame and things that we all go through as humans as part of the human experience, but when you go through those things, you're basically departing from your natural frequency. Wouldn't you agree, Penny?
Yes, yes, yeah. And it's not that, to me, like we're a big spherical being. We have this big field of energy, and inside of that are all the possible frequencies. And what you place your attention on becomes real for you in that moment.
Yes.
And as soon as you take your attention out of it, it kind of fades back into the background. You sort of forget it. And then, so it's a big thing about what you choose to place attention on.
Yeah, I'm always telling my clients the angelic is here, the demonic is here.
Yeah.
It's what do you choose to focus on?
Right.
And I grew up in the day, this is going to really date me, back when you had the TV sets, and if you change the channels, there would be static between the channels. And yet this is how we actually are. You get to tune yourself on a second by second basis by what you're focusing your attention on.
Yes, yes. And part of that is, I think we have a kind of residue from lots of past lives of suffering, and where it was noble to suffer, or to sacrifice yourself, and all of this, so that we're sort of, in some ways, we glorify pain, and we have to learn that it's not natural to the soul. It is not, the soul has no cognition of suffering. It doesn't get it at all, and it knows easy flow, total integration, permission, abundance. Things can, if you think of it, you can have it. And if you don't want it, you can unthink of it and it goes away, and so we have to get over that identity that we have attached to misery.
Yeah.
Right. And start to remember who we really are.
That's such a powerful statement. One of my books is called The Difference Between Pain and Suffering. And in a nutshell, my guidance told me one day, write an article about the difference between pain and suffering, which seemed so obvious to me. So I jotted it off in about 30 minutes. And then what I noticed was somebody read that article literally every day of my life. So here's the nutshell of it. If your pain is the physical experience, suffering is the ego experience. And this deep sense of contentment, of being at oneness, peace, ecstasy that Penny talks about is actually literally who you are. And so the more that you can bring yourself back into resonance with this true self, then, everything shifts, your mental, emotional state, your physical well-being.
Yeah. And I think these days, because the frequency on the planet has accelerated so much, it has caused us to come more and more into the present moment, which of course is instantaneous, right? So the more we were in the old left brain way of thinking, where it was linear and you had a past, present, and future, it slowed everything down. The faster we become frequency-wise, the more everything becomes centered in the present moment or included in the present moment. Even the past, even the future, it's just other potential realities and frequencies that are in your huge present moment. So, so what happens then, that everything is available. Like you said, the devil and the angels are there together. Everything's there. It makes up the wholeness of everything. And nothing wrong with any one of them. You can go play with those vibrations if you want. And you're the thing that's beyond that, that it's almost like when you really go into the being and settle down and just be and don't hold ideas of identity or definitions, you become very powerful because you reach far. Your energy goes through the whole of the field. And then if you have a thought of peace, harmony, returning it to spirit, then everything that you've included in your field with you starts to get that message. And it starts to almost forget again what it was so bothered by. So there's a certain power in a new kind of power in being able to go into that home frequency, into that state of being soul while you're in the body, and letting that radiate through the field around you. And that is, that goes back to the frequency dynamics that we're all learning now of how do you work with your energy? How do you work with consciousness and energy in order to, like, one, materialize new realities or dematerialize ones that you're done with, or heal, or shift out of pain and suffering and so forth into your destiny, what you're built for, and that's the art of living, it's the new art of really living.
Now, Penney Peirce, author of Frequency, let's bring this back to natural healing, because we started by talking about how all illness and disease is slowed down vibration, and that healing happens when we shift our vibration. And so we're all practicing being human. So as you pay attention to your own frequency and the frequency of others, how, first of all, we can go to an energy healer. Like, you can come to me and I can do Reiki with you, or I can do distant healing with you. And you can work with a practitioner to shift your frequency. But from your experience, Penney Peirce, how can we, when we realize that we've fallen into disease or illness, how can we shift our own vibration so that healing happens naturally?
I think first you have to notice when you're thinking negatively, because the left brain usually works with negative declarative statements. Oh, I don't know how to dance, or, oh, I have to have medicine in order to heal. I can't do it by myself. And if you notice, first of all, those negative statements and how you're limiting yourself by the way you're thinking, that's very important, first of all. And then suspend that for a moment, and say, well, I don't know. In the moment, maybe there's another way. And then you start to put your attention on the being, which is kind of like, some people call it the observer. I'm not my thoughts. I'm the one who's watching the thoughts happen. I'm the one that holds it all and allows everything. And I can play with the thoughts, but I am not identifying with them, And so, oh gosh, that's a process of pretty much being willing to let go of old identities and definitions. And I think everybody starts to do that as they become more enlightened or more transparent. And of course, that relates a lot to raising your frequency as well. You raise your frequency, you can't stand the constriction of too much identity.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm this way because this happened to me in my childhood. Well, if you want to hold that idea, yes, you will be that way, Yeah. But if you let it go and you say, that doesn't have anything to do with what I'm doing right now.
Right. So
yeah.
So part of what you're talking about is letting go of the old story. And the first step is to realize, what story are you telling yourself?
True. That's a big part of it. And that's part of letting go of the contractions that we talked about before, and allowing more fluidity and surprise. And, because in each moment, the soul will present ideas. It will present skills. It'll give you opportunities to do things you've never done. And then you say, okay, I'll engage with it. And then you find out, I know how to do this, or I'm learning. But if you say no, it cuts off all the experience. Okay, so that keeps your vibration down. So trying new things, opening up, letting your mind be flexible, fluid, open. Working with your intuition, where you don't have proof, but you get impressions, you get insights, and then you must learn to trust. Trust.
You and I talked about trust and learning to trust ourselves in our previous interview.
Okay, well, it's a big theme, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to trust yourself in order to be able to listen to your soul guidance, for sure.
Absolutely. you have to, realize that somewhere deep inside you, you are the soul, and you do know what you're doing because you're connected to all other souls at some level there. So everybody's helping, and you're in the flow. It's all working fine. And so you can trust what you get. You can trust your ability to materialize it. That we all do know these things at a deeper level. It's not new knowledge to us. We've been around a long time. We know these things.
I would, bringing this back again to natural healing, if I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, the first thing that I do quick and dirty is I look at a person's overall chi level. And I put it on a scale of 0 to 100, with 50 being average for a man or woman of your age. So I don't compare you to a 22-year-old unless you're 22. And what I find is people are either building their chi, which positive thoughts, spiritual practice, eating well, exercising, getting enough rest, or you're diminishing your chi, worry, anger, being stuck in your old story, eating junk food, again, all the things that we do. And the way that I think of it is the more you build your chi, and by positive health practices and positive living and positive thinking and spiritual practice, then when you're faced with a virus or a bacteria or what have you, your energy system, your mind-body system can process it out pretty quickly. You don't need to stay stuck there, right?
Yeah, and I think there are a couple things that popped to my mind as you were talking. One is occupying yourself fully. That, if you need to be in your body, in the moment, behind your eyes, identifying yourself as your soul, knowing, hey, I know a lot, and I'm here and I know what I'm doing. And I have a life purpose and I'm doing it and I'm interested in growth and evolution, blah, blah, blah. I've noticed, like, when people are not occupying themselves fully, they often are susceptible to things like viruses or Lyme disease or something where you get an invasion of something. It seems foreign and you think of it as foreign and outside you. But when you think of everything as just part of this whole, then things are not dangerous in the same way that they were when you think of them as separate. And it's a mindset.
I just did a medical intuitive reading this week with a young woman in another foreign country, and she wanted to know if there was any toxic things in her environment. And I talked to her about that. And I said, in addition to the evil stuff that you see out there, I said, part of this has to do with faulty programming on your part. Because I said, Albert Einstein said, the most important question is whether or not you consider the universe to be a friendly place.
Right.
Because if you consider the universe to be a friendly place, then everything that happens is for your highest good.
Yes.
So, I mean, even so, for example, if you realize there's mold in my house, it's like, okay, well, I can clean that up for the benefit of everyone, right? But if we're constantly on guard, from all the evil stuff out there, that changes your self-perception. Then you stay stuck in victim thinking, and it's easy, basically stuck in disease, right?
Right. And I think the same thing with food and things where if you think that there's dangerous stuff in food, and then that you're at odds with it, it's very likely that that state of mind will actually cause you harm. Whereas, if you're just open and you embrace mold or pesticides or anything that's in your food and say, it's just part of life. It's in me. Bacteria are living in me. Everything's got everything in it. And it's fine. And I'm not afraid. So then you can allow it to be. You could even probably eat that and not be bothered by it. Or you can just be as free as to keep it out of your personal environment if you don't want it there.
Yeah.
But then you're not in that resistance mindset, which is fear-based.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned, food, I'm always telling people the most important thing is your relationship with food. It's your attitude about food. Now, am I telling you to go out and eat a bunch of aspartame and food laced with Roundup? Probably not.
No.
I can remember, one of the real powerful things with Dr. David Hawkins, author of Power versus Force, when he was alive, going to see him lecture. And he's sitting there drinking a Diet Coke.
Right.
And I think he was really making a powerful statement. And he talked about how people who were students, serious students of A Course in Miracles, were not affected by fluorescent lights and aspartame and a lot of things that adversely affect other people. And one of the tenets of A Course in Miracles is, again, there's no out there, and everything that I hold in mind is what manifests. So although, what Penny and I are talking about may sound outlandish to, people who are very serious about natural healing, again, what we're saying is go even deeper. Challenge your beliefs. Ask yourself, what am I really holding in mind?
Yes.
Really think that there's these evil stuff out there.
Well, I often think about, how we say grace, and how we bless our food. Because I always think, like, back in the olden days when they didn't have refrigeration and stuff, that their food went kind of bad, or it starts going off, and so you didn't have any more. So you needed to eat and use what you had. So you would put energy into you'd bless it by almost like saying, I see the life force in you. Please come forth. I would like to share myself with you, and I would like to, take you into me. And thank you very much for being here and offering this to me. And so it was a way, really, of maximizing the life force in all things, and I think, probably we ate a lot of things that would be really bad for us today.
Yeah. And, I think that there's a lot of wisdom to what you're talking about, because you can, in my view, such as it is, not that I'm right about anything, but here's my current view. You can pray over anything, whether it's a drug or a supplement or a food. And as you pray over it, you set your intention and you allow the divine to work through you, so that everything that you receive the benefit of the drug, the supplement, the food, and you ask that everything that is not for your highest good, that your body quickly and easily eliminate that.
Yeah. And I think, again, just going back to that point of like you can say, I don't want pesticides in my food, but they're just, parts, they're molecules, everything's molecules, and it's all part of life. So it's okay if they're there, and I don't really need them to be there, but I'm not resisting them and making them bad. So then you divide the world again into inside and outside. And then, of course, you're back in fear. So you have to keep a unified world, like it's a big ball around you and it includes everything.
Right. And that's that oneness. So what's really interesting from a natural healing point of view is that as you think carefully about your spiritual view of the world, that shows you, what beliefs you're holding down deep, and that can reveal to you if you're holding beliefs that may manifest as disease or illness. Right?
Right. The other thing is, since we do have this great ability to frequency match, when you go around in the world, you will tend to notice people who have overlapping patterns with you, maybe some that are subconscious with you, and you will frequency match that pattern in them. And then you'll think they're doing it, right? I got to get rid of them, or I've got to change them or something. But you have to remember you're matching it because you have it also. If you didn't have the same pattern, you wouldn't notice it particularly, and so I think it's a kind of a gift in a way too, that frequency wise, we use that matching ability to bring up things that are in the way, that we want to get rid of, that are blocking us from our total clarity and transparency,
Yes, absolutely. Because, like you said, if I see something in you, whether it's something I think is a good thing, a compliment, or something that I can't stand about you, I wouldn't be able to see it if it wasn't in me also, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and and then a lot of times if it doesn't match the way we think we're supposed to be, then we try to get rid of the other person or try to fix them or change them or heal, rescue them or whatever. And really, they need that right now so they can learn their lessons. It's like they'll get rid of it when they're ready, and so will we. uh, I guess a lot of that healing is just up to us as how we want to feel. There's a choice, and that's the fundamental thing, really, is a choice about how do you want to feel. Nobody can make me feel bad if I don't want to. you know it's
Yeah.
up to me how I respond, how I hold myself, how I view things. And uh, and of course we oscillate. We're never just one way. So, I'll be clear and then I'll get plugged in about the barking dog in the back of my house, and then I have to calm down and the dog stops barking, and then, another thing comes. So you just have to remember that this is going to happen, that we fluctuate in our frequency. And we always have the home frequency, though, so we can always return to the way we like to feel, or I call it sometimes our preferred state. Like, I like that way I feel when I'm like being this way. And I can notice almost immediately now when I stray from that state, and then I get lethargic, or I get agitated, or can't sleep, or whatever it is. We have our own favorite ways of getting off center. you know but I think part of it is notice when you're not in your home frequency and what throws you off. Then make a commitment to say, oh, okay, I don't need to stay there. Just a minute, let me take a breath, come back into the center, strike my tuning fork of my, for home frequency preferred state, let myself kind of slide back into that way of being. Now I'm back. Here I am.
Yeah.
And you can do that pretty fast.
Yes. And what's so beautiful about what you just described, Penney Peirce, is you described a really quick way of coming back to home base.
Mm-hmm.
But for our audience, let's say somebody's stuck, let's say it's something extreme. They're in a suicidal state, or they've had a death in the family, or,
Mm-hmm.
as humans, we all experience tremendous challenges.
Right.
So, and in natural healing, there's 1,001 practices that we can go through to change our frequency, to reset, whether it's to receive energy healing or meditate or practice yoga. What are some of the natural healing practices that you find that work most efficiently at helping people come back to their home frequency?
I think we have to have a conscious recognition of what the state feels like, who we feel like we are when we're in that state. Everybody's probably had those real moments sometime in their life where they can say, oh, that was an indelible thing. It is never going to go away. I can always recenter back into that because I know that was real. The other ones that are sort of shallow and metallic and sharp and those other states, they're not really real. They're what would you call distortions of your state. So first you have to know the real state. And if somebody's really, really suicidal, I think they need guidance to help go back to a real moment when they were themselves, or when they can identify what that feels like. Then they have a comparison. You have to have that to know, okay, I'm going into the suicidal state because I'm contracting my energy down. Why? I'm talking to myself about what isn't, what I don't have, what isn't happening to me, why I don't have love, why I can't do this, why negative left brain yakety yak. And as soon as you can recognize the negative statements, you can suspend them and even turn them around to say, well, wait, I do know who I am. Wait, I am already love. I don't really need a whole lot of love. I just want to play in it. Wait, I can be creative if I want. Re-empower yourself and entitle yourself to be who you are. That turns everything around. But I don't know, I think that's why we need help a lot of times.
Yeah,
You've got to reach out and ask so that you can get back to, that core place.
So for our audience, I'm going to give suggestions about what helps me feel and experience my own home frequency.
Yeah.
Meditation. When I'm meditating, I'm in the experience of my own home frequency. Walking in nature.
Yes. Well, I think a lot of that is that in order to start to slide into the home frequency, you have to get out of the left brain. And the left brain is the language center. It's, analyzing and defining and making meaning and all that, but it mainly has language. So if you're in your head yakking and talking and having scenarios with people you don't like, and these little dramas that go on inside our heads, well, you're stuck in your left brain. So to get out of it, you have to stop talking. That's the key thing. So get quiet, stop the thoughts, stop the commentary, internal dialogue, and be quiet. Go into the silence, actually create silence in your mind. And that's meditation, basically, right? And so when you can be quiet for a while, then you start noticing there's this other kind of consciousness that comes in that's really spread out. And it's one with things. You go into a kind of communion space of directly knowing things. And that's the right brain perception. It has no language. It has direct immersion into life. And you feel spirit in matter with that. So, one quick way is to stop that internal dialogue. But we are so distracted today with phones and gizmos and, screen addiction and having to be involved with people constantly, that we really need to cultivate that stopping, pausing, the pause that refreshes, right?
Yeah.
And nature does that too, like you said.
Yes. And we can pay attention to what sort of day-to-day practices help us to return to our home frequency. Yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, even washing the dishes, right?
Right. It's all about attention, right? Becoming one with something. Like I have a practice where I always say my coffee cup, I've always got like something here that I'm drinking. And if I put attention on it first, I see it as an object, but then as I start to go into it, I go in and I feel the material it's made out of and the atoms, and I go down, down, down and in, and I realize it's being shaped in a certain way by some kind of consciousness. It's not just me looking at it, but it's like there's stuff inside that matter. And it could be beings, it could be, whatever. It's energy. And then I merge with it, and then I know it.
Yeah, Penney Peirce, the author of Frequency, you're actually sounding very much like a physicist.
Well, yes, I'm very much a physicist in some ways. Yeah. Metaphysics and physics are like, so totally connected.
Yeah, I know. I've actually gone to Emory University and taken physics classes. I wanted to have a better understanding from a left brain perspective of what it is I actually do and being able to understand it and explain it. So Penney Peirce, the author of Frequency, what are some of the things that you do to maintain a high, clear frequency for yourself?
I realize this about myself, that I'm fairly introverted, meaning I get energy from being quiet and being alone. I love people, I love social activity, but I can't do too much of it, because I merge with it all. And then I have so much data that I can hardly process it. I don't know what to do. So I have to have a rhythm of making forays out into the world, coming back, settling, gardening, whatever it is, and letting it come up and processing it at its own speed. But I need space to do that. So that's one thing. But like I said, gardening, working with plants and dirt and animals, or and like just walking, things like that. Music,
Yeah.
things that take you into your right brain and out of your analytical self. And I can certainly be very, very, very analytical, and but and I like that part too.
And
But it's also the lack of it is great.
What's wonderful, Penney Peirce, is that you've developed the wisdom of how to handle your extreme sensitivity. And one of the things that I'm always talking to my clients about is if you are a highly sensitive person, you have to become strong enough to handle your sensitivity, right?
Right.
You can't just be getting what I refer to as psychic whack all the time when you're constantly, being bombarded by vibrations. So again, it's about coming into your own home frequency, knowing what your home frequency feels like, staying in your center, being strong in your center, being the lighthouse, if you will, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
knowing what it is feeds your soul, and like Penny says, knowing what helps you regenerate, right?
Yeah. And I think there's a deeper thing. I mean, what bothers me about merging with everything is that, like, if I go to New York City and there's all these people running around of every possible shape and size and color and everything, and it's so fascinating to me on one level. And then I get like overstimulated because I'm so interested in it. I've placed attention on it, and now I'm getting the data from it. And then I think, well, wait, do I even need that data? Like, or can I just be in my home frequency, be like the earth, and just hosting all the different kinds of activity that go on the earth, from volcanoes to peaceful meadows to war to gardening, and not identify with any part of it and allow it. And that's another method. Maybe I'm trying to work on that a little bit, so that I don't become the thing that I'm feeling.
Right. And that goes into non-resistance, right?
Yeah.
Non-resistance, allowing, blessing everything that occurs, realizing that everything actually is in divine order, right?
Right.
Because when we try to control with our energy, that's exhaustion. And a lot of times we don't even realize that we're trying to control things, right? Right?
Probably the reason that I like take in all that data and try to know it is that I may be at some level afraid that it's going to dominate me, that I will lose myself in the face of that. But really, I'm bigger than all that. I hold it all. But when I start to get threatened by it, I feel smaller than that. So I've shifted my point of view, and maybe part of it is opening back up, letting things be included in the big body of knowledge that we have, and relaxing, and just, like you said, letting it be. It's all part of the flow, and I don't have to feel smaller than it. But that's a habit that takes a while to develop.
Yeah. And what Penny and I are talking about is really managing your frequency. If you're listening to this broadcast and you recognize that you are also a highly sensitive person, there's a lot of wisdom to what we're talking about. All right. So Penney Peirce, author of Frequency, any final thoughts for our audience?
Well, I was just thinking about, we talked about frequency matching, and I think that we do grow. We're growing a lot. People are on a spiritual path. They're opening up. They're letting go of old fixations and identities, and they're getting faster and faster. And then what happens is that a lot of the people that you used to match with, that were your friends, they're not choosing to go to the same frequency you are. And so you start to have these mismatches where they'll get mad at you and try to force you back into that lower vibration so you'll match with them, so they don't have to be scared of losing you. There's all these things where people act out when the frequencies change. But basically, you cannot stay very well connected to people who are refusing to grow or not raise their vibration. And then people are separating a lot.
You've been listening to Penney Peirce, the author of Frequency, the Power of Personal Vibration. You can find out more about Penney at pennypeirce.com. This is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. Find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. And remember that when you shift your frequency upwards and change your core awareness to your soul, you heal yourself naturally. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.